It is day it is day one of the NBA postseason. We have the play-in tournament starting tonight and the regular postseason starting on Saturday. So let's start with the play-ins. Fact or fiction, a play-in team will make it to the conference finals this season. Jenks, what do you think?
I don't know. Maybe. I've been thinking about this for a play-in. Obviously, when you're thinking about this question, the question is, do you think the Nets will make it? That's all this question is. Do you think the Nets will play or make it to the conference finals? And I'm going to say, God, I'm going to say yes. I don't think they're going to win it all, but I'm going to say fact just because this is what KD and Kyrie have been waiting for. And I like that Seth Curry is healthy now. Maybe they get Ben Simmons back. Maybe they don't. The rumors are, or the reports are, that he's finally practicing without pain in his back. So I'm a little nervous. They're 7-1, the third favorite to win the NBA title. But now is the time that we are expecting the Nets to be that team. I'm going to put a little trust in them, even though they were uneven during the regular season. So I'm going to go fact.
I'll take the other side of that. And you're right. That's the storyline we're all looking at is, can the Nets go to the conference finals from that play-in game? But the problem is they're facing the Celtics, I believe, if they win that play-in game. I think if maybe double elimination, I think they do beat the Cavs in their first game. So it will be a matchup, I believe, against the Celtics. And what a tough draw. No team has been defensively tougher than the Boston Celtics in the East than anybody. I think they've been the best defensive team, led by Marcus Smart, who is the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. Looking at the other side, I think the Clippers can be a little pesky, but they also get the tough task of, if they win against the Timberwolves, playing the Grizzlies, who even without Ja Morant have been an absolute wagon, a huge winning record. I don't have it in front of me, but it's absolutely astounding what that team has done, even without their biggest superstar. So I think the matchup is just too tough for both of these play-in teams that actually have the potential to go far. It's just the matchup is too tough.
Absolutely agree with you, Chelsea. I think this is fiction mainly because of the Boston Celtics. If the Nets were going to play anybody else in the first round, I would say probably fact that I'd be on Jenks' side. But the Celtics are such a tough draw for the Brooklyn Nets, and we've seen them struggle throughout the season with health and when everybody's on the court at the same time. So I do think that they're going to have a tough time getting through Boston. I'm glad you mentioned Ja Morant because the Grizzlies were 21-2 without him on the court this season.
That's what I was looking for.
The question is, fact or fiction, Ja Morant will lead all players in scoring in the first round of this year's playoffs.
I'm going to go fiction just because that is such a narrow market and there's plenty of other playmakers in the tournament. So let's look at their first round matchup. It's going to be either against the Clippers, I believe, or the Timberwolves. Maybe if they play the Timberwolves, because that team loves playing overs and running and gunning. So if we do get Timberwolves Memphis, oh my God, it's going to be a pace fest between those two teams. But I don't think so, just because there's so many other players. Trae Young will probably shoot, 100 threes, score 40 points in a loss.
I'm going to say fiction here. There's just too many scorers right now in the NBA that are in the playoffs. I mean, Joel Embiid won the scoring title, dropping more than 30 a game. I don't see that tailing off in the playoffs. I know they need James Harden, but it doesn't matter because we've seen, even with James Harden, Joel Embiid has monster performances. Look at Giannis. You don't think Giannis is going to step up? I mean, my God, he can put it up. And then if he's healthy, what about Luka? This is a guy who is going to have to carry the Mavs as far as they can go in the playoffs. He usually explodes. He's been great in previous postseasons. So as much as I like Ja, the one thing the Grizz have proven that they don't need Ja to win games. They were awesome this year. Without Ja, they are a great team. And yeah, he can go off at any point, but he's not quite on the scoring level of those other guys. So I'm going to say fiction.
When I look at the matchup that they're going to have, if it's the Timberwolves, I think this is the complete and utter fact. If it's not, then I'm a little bit more wary, but I'll still stick with it. I think it's a fact. He just is returning from injury, so he is fresh. He's not going to have tired legs. It's just a matter of if he's 100%. His ability to drive the ball is really why I like it, because in the NBA playoffs, you're not going to get shooting fest most often, and I think his ability to do whatever the defense gives him is what's going to give him an advantage here in the first round. And it also doesn't seem like he's really phased by any of the bright lights, and we've seen that so far in his career. So hopefully that continues. I think this is a fact.
Before we move on, I think it's going to be a big man. I think it's going to be Giannis or Jokic because those guys are such a mismatch. And plus, it doesn't matter if they're cold shooting because they're taking high percentage shots. So if I had a bet where it was John Morant or a big man, I think I'd go big man.
Well, plus I want to say to your point, also Nikola Jokic is a guy I didn't mention, but that's a great point because he doesn't have anybody around him. I mean, compared to the other teams, if the Nuggets are going to advance at all, it's going to be all Nikola Jokic all the time. Even though I think Embiid's going to show out, at least he has a guy like James Harden who can pick up the scoring slack. The Nugs don't have that. If Nikola has an off game or he doesn't score, they're toast. So that's another good point too.
Let's talk top seeds now. Neither one seed in either conference will make it to the NBA Finals. Fact or fiction, Jenks?
I'm going to say fiction. I love the Suns. I absolutely love the Suns and the way they're playing. And I don't think that we give Phoenix nearly enough credit. They have blistered the regular season. And this is a team that is motivated after last year. They want to get back to the finals. I think they do get back to the finals. And as tempted as I am to say, well, the Warriors, once Steph gets back, they're going to be a handful, and they will be. They have been really uneven this season, even at full strength. Klay Thompson has been good, but Steph has been banged up. Then Draymond was out for a while. They've never quite put it together on a consistent basis to make me think over a 7-game series that they can match up with a motivated Suns team. I just love the Suns top to bottom. So I'm going to say fiction.
Too, for that reason. I think the Eastern Conference is an absolute gauntlet, and there is a great chance that the Miami Heat do not advance to the NBA Finals. But looking at the Suns, they just have all of the ingredients for an NBA Finals team. They've got the veteran point guard and facilitator, the best in the league, in my opinion, that has the experience. This team played in the finals last year. Devin Booker, the scorer that can really get things cooking from the outside. And then down low, DeAndre Ayton is a little bit quieter. He doesn't talk too much, but still a great piece. And then some of the best role players in the entire NBA. So a team that is so good top to bottom. They have the experience. And the West just doesn't have other teams that look consistently nearly as good as the Phoenix Suns.
I agree with both of you. I'm going to go with fiction on this one as well. The big hope is that Chris Paul got his awful injury out of the way in the second half of the season and he can play healthy into the playoffs. And I think if he does that and he's healthy throughout, the Suns, there's nobody in the Western Conference that are going to be able to even compete with them, let alone take them down in a best-of-7 series. The Heat, and the other end, like you said, Chelsea, the East is very interesting and it's a gauntlet. You don't know who's going to win. We have an potential 8 seed that is going to be the favorite coming out of the play-in tournament in the Brooklyn Nets. If they don't win tonight, they could get the 8 seed still. So I think that it's really interesting in the East and the West. I think it's really a one-horse race at this moment in time. Last one, fact or fiction, there will be more Game 7s than sweeps in the first round of the NBA playoffs.
Fiction. I'm going to go with some lopsided victories in some of these first round matchups. Looking squarely at the Bucks and the Bulls, we know the knock on the Bulls has been they cannot play well against the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And oh, by the way, Milwaukee, I believe, is 4-0 against the Bulls this season. So I think that's not going to be a game that's not even close to going 7 games. And then just looking at some of these, I think Memphis is going to run the table with whoever they play in the first round. Boston might have a tougher time if they get the Nets. But still, I don't see a lot of these going 7 games.
Looking at this morning, I'm totally with you. I'm taking the Bucks to sweep at plus 250 at BetMGM. What was interesting is at BetMGM, you could bet on a sweep in that series at plus 240 or a Bucks sweep at plus 250. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. What, the Bulls are going to sweep? No, the Bulls to sweep are 100 to 1, I think. That's not going to happen. So I don't know what was the discrepancy in the value there, but yeah, just take the Bucks. If you're going to bet on this series, don't bet on the sweep, bet on the Bucks to sweep. I don't think Chicago can hang. They are done. Milwaukee's on a mission. They're playing great basketball right now. We know how terrible they are against bad teams. So I agree with you, Chelsea.
I'm on the same train as well. It's fiction. It's the NBA first round. When do we see that many game sevens in the first round? We see sweeps more than anything. The only two series that I could potentially see going the distance, 76ers Raptors and Celtics Nets, if that indeed is the matchup. But other than that, no games, no series are going to go 7 games besides that.
Yeah, I think the one we have circled is the Nets, potentially. Obviously, they've got to beat the Cavs first. The Nets facing the Celtics.